Hi guys, how are you? Back again. We are starting chapter 4 today. Today's background is brought to you by also the cruise we took in December over New Year's. This is a beach in Cozumel, in Mexico. I thought that looked nice. So we left off and Buck had just had a fight with Spitz and ended up killing him. So we are going to pick up where we just left off. Chapter 4, Who has won the mastership? What I say? I speak true when I say that Buck two devils. This was Francois's speech next morning when he discovered Spitz missing and Buck covered with wounds. He drew him to the fire and by this light pointed them out. "Dat Spitz fight like hell," said Perrault as he surveyed the gaping rips and cuts. "And dat Buck fight like two hells," said Francois's answer. "And now we make good time. No more Spitz, no more trouble, sure." While Perrault packed the camp outfit and loaded the sled, the dog driver proceeded to harness the dogs. Buck trotted up to the place Spitz would have occupied as leader, but Francois, not noticing him, brought Solex to the coveted position. In his judgment, Solex was the best lead dog left. Buck sprang upon Solex in a fury, driving him back and standing in his place. Eh? Francois cried, slapping his thigh gleefully. "Look at dat Buck. Him kill dat Spitz. Him think he take that job." "Go away, Chook," he cried, but Buck refused to budge. He took Buck by the scruff of the neck, and though the dog growled threateningly, dragged him to one side and replaced Solex. The old dog did not like it, and showed plainly that he was afraid of Buck. Francois was obdurate, but when he turned his back, Buck again dispatched Solex, who was not at all unwilling to go. Francois was angry. "Now, by gar, I fix you," he cried, coming back with a heavy club in his hand. Buck remembered the man in the red sweater and retreated slowly, nor did he attempt to charge in when Solex was once more brought forward. But he circled just beyond the range of the club, snarling with bitterness and rage. And when he circled, he watched the club so as to dodge it if thrown by Francois, for he was becoming wise in the ways of clubs. The driver went about his work, and he called to Buck when he was ready to put him in his old place in front of Dave. Buck retreated 2 or 3 steps. Francois followed him up, whereupon he again retreated. After some time of this, Francois threw down his club, thinking that Buck feared a thrashing, but Buck was in open revolt. He wanted not to escape a clubbing, but to have the leadership. It was his by right. He had earned it, and he would not be content with less. Perrault took a hand. Between them, they ran him about for the better part of an hour. They threw clubs at him. He dodged. They cursed him and his fathers and mothers before him and all his seed to come after him down to the remotest generation, and every hair on his body and drop of blood in his veins. And he answered curse with snarl and kept out of their reach. He did not try to run away, but retreated around and around the camp, advertising plainly that when his desire was met, he would come in and be good. Francois sat down and scratched his head. Perrault looked at his watch and swore. Time was flying, and they should have been on the trail an hour ago. Francois scratched his head again. He shook it and grinned sheepishly at the courier, who shrugged his shoulders in sign that they were beaten. Then Francois went up to where Solex stood and called to Buck. Buck laughed, as dogs laugh, yet kept his distance. Francois unfastened Solex's traces and put him back in his old place. The team stood harnessed to the sled in an unbroken line, ready for the trail. There was no place for Buck save at the front. Once more Francois called, and once more Buck laughed and kept away. "Tro down de club, Perrault," commanded. Throw down the club, Perrault commanded. Francois complied, whereupon Buck trotted in, laughing triumphantly, and swung around into position at the head of the team. His traces were fastened, and the sled broken out, and with both men running, they dashed out onto the river trail. Highly as the dog driver had forevalued Buck with his two devils, he found, while the day was yet young, that he had undervalued. At a bound, Buck took up the duties of leadership, and where judgment was required and quick thinking and quick acting, he showed himself the superior even of Spitz, of whom Francois had never seen an equal. But it was in giving the law and making his mates live up to it that Buck excelled. Dave and Sol-leks did not mind the change in leadership. It was none of their business. Their business was to toil and toil mightily in the traces. So long as that were not interfered with, they did not care what happened. Billy, the good-natured, could lead for all they cared, so long as he kept order. The rest of the team, however, had grown unruly during the last days of Spitz, and their surprise was great now that Buck proceeded to lick them into shape. Pike, who pulled at Buck's heels and who never put an ounce more of his weight against the breastband than he was compelled to do, was swiftly and repeatedly shaken for loafing. And ere the first day was done, he was pulling more than ever before in his life. The first night in camp, Joe, the sour one, was punished roundly, a thing that Spitz had never succeeded in doing. Buck simply smothered him by virtue of superior weight and cut him up till he ceased snapping and began to whine for mercy. The general tone of the team picked up immediately, and it recovered its old-time solidarity, and once more the dogs leaped as one dog in the traces. At the rink rapids, two native huskies, Teak and Kuna, were added, and the celerity with which Buck broke them took Francois's breath. Never such a dog as that Buck, he cried. No, never. He'm worth $1,000, by gar. Eh? What you say, Perrault? And Perrault nodded. He was ahead of the record then and gained day by day. The trail was in excellent condition, well packed and hard, and there was no new fallen snow with which to contend. It was not too cold. The temperature dropped to 50 below zero and remained there the whole trip. The men rode and ran by turn, and the dogs were kept on a jump with but infrequent stoppages. The 30-mile river was comparatively coated with ice, and they covered in one day going out what had taken them 10 days coming in. In one run, they made a 60-mile dash from foot of Lake LaBarge to the White Horse Rapids, across Marsh, Tagish, and Bennett, 70 miles of lakes. They flew so fast that the man whose turn it was to run towed behind the sled at the end of the rope. And on the last night of the second week, they topped White Pass and dropped down the sea slope with the lights of Skagway and of shipping at their feet. It was a record run, each day for 14 days, that had averaged 40 miles. For 3 days, Perrault and Francois threw chests up and down the main street of Sagwa and were deluged with invitations to drink, while the team was the constant center of a worshipful crowd of dogbusters and mushers. Then 3 or 4 Western bad men aspired to clean out the town, were riddled like pepper boxes for their pains, and public interest turned to other idols. Next came official orders. Francois called Buck to him, threw his arms around him, wept over him, and that was the last of Francois and Perrault. Like other men, they passed out of Buck's life for good. So, oh, can't see it. There we go. There's a picture of Buck. See, he's pulling the sled. He's in the lead. So we're going to stop there because that's a good place to stop. And we will pick up tomorrow. Have a great day, guys.